morning. The program is Viewpoint. Here's WPRC. Is that an old number? Is that old call stations that you might remember?
Well, yeah, but my gosh, that was 100 years ago.
All right.
It isn't even anymore, is it, James?
High on the road here. No, I suspect that number was called.
It's upper north of WPRC.
Oh, is that right? There's still
there
active
is?
call letters. It was taken by somebody
Is that
else.
right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Too bad. Well, maybe we can take it back. We'll storm them.
There, yeah.
All right. The program is Viewpoint. The program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We have a perspective, and we certainly have a personality here this morning. Going to introduce the young man very, very shortly. As always, we try to start Viewpoint with a kudo. Judith K., I'd like to come up with one for Scotty Brown and his young folks with the Taekwondo. We recall that we had Scotty up here, and we are bringing him back, by the way. They went north to somewhere north of here, James, and they came back with a bunch of championships. So in major competition. So good for those young folks up there.
He's been an influence for good for an awful lot of young people. Bless his heart.
Fine Christian gentleman, he certainly is. Did you have any other kudos that you wish to talk about this morning? No? Because Don Knott says nope.
Well, I probably would have, but off the top of my head, I didn't think. When do you have to know?
Well, not too soon. Yeah. Well, let's get right in and introduce our guest. And I'll turn those honors over to you, Mrs. Busby.
Yes, another person from our neighborhood, as a matter of fact. Caleb Sutton lives across the street from us, and Caleb is a graduate of Lincoln Community High School. You may remember him as we get into this. And also a college graduate majoring in communications and business. He's a smart kid and a very capable basketball player, and we're going to talk about that little segment of his life because he just returned a little bit ago from France, where he's been playing basketball. And the reason I thought about how much I'd like to talk with you about this, Caleb, was they used to use a term, the ugly American, in the some of the European countries and Asian countries don't like America very much. They're willing to take any aid or anything that we have to send. They don't refuse the check or anything, but they don't really care for us otherwise. And here you are, a boy from Lincoln, America, over there in France, and I told you when we were talking, I was walking the baby and we were talking in front of your house, I said that I wondered how they treated you being an American. And maybe we'll just start there and move into the big basketball arena, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I was treated very well, and I think I was treated well simply because I was a basketball player. So all the relationships that I started off were because of basketball. I wasn't a tourist, so I didn't just come to sightsee and take in the countryside. I came there for a particular purpose because the region that I was in needed some assistance.
Assistance in what manner would that
basketball.
be? Basketball.
The team that I was on was last in their conference before I got there. I got there in the middle of the season. And so they were looking for some sort of help or aid immediately, and I was able to provide that. So based upon that provision, the relationship that I established, I was extremely well. I can remember walking down the streets of the town and people coming up to me and speaking to me, even though I didn't speak French well at the time. I understood how they felt and what it is that they were trying to relay to me, simply because there was such an excited, a face and tone and expression coming from them. So relationally, I saw that, they treat people really well. But I do know that there are different stereotypes that everybody has about different regions and places. So the biggest thing, I think they want to see if Americans like their food. Yeah, so there's the different, I know there were several families that I got to encounter, and they wanted to feed me cheese. And there's not just one flavor of cheese or 6 flavors of cheese. There's like 398,000 flavors of cheese, and I think they wanted me to try all of them. So, like, the first couple of times that I go have dinner with people, I would try as much as I could. But after we became friends, I was like, you know what? We'll pass on the cheese for now, because some of that stuff, man, it was funny to look at. I'll just put it that way. It was very interesting to look at, so I didn't want to eat it.
But you said that when you'd go to their homes and they'd fix dinner for you, that you were pretty impressed.
Oh, absolutely. It was. I was amazed at the spread that they had. I mean, every time I went over there, even if it was for like a Sunday brunch, they had, an appetizer, then another appetizer, then a main dish. Then after the main dish, it was like a after meal snack, and then a dessert. Every single time. I couldn't believe it. And the way it was prepared, it looked like I was on the Food Network channel every time.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was immaculate.
So when you got home, did you tell your mom that you expected the same here?
Absolutely not.
Good move, Caleb.
Absolutely not.
I'll start with a little linguistic quiz for him. Bonjour, monsieur. Comment ça va aujourd'hui?
Ah, ça va bien, merci beaucoup. Et toi?
Well, my guys, he rose to the top. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here you said you forgot all your French when you got back home.
When I hear it, stuff just kind of like it's an audible thing, and I can't really explain it. So like, I understand more French than I can actually speak, but and I think that helps me a little bit.
Judy mentioned the ugly American aspect. I can tell you with great certainty that some of us go abroad and we earn that appellation. We are indeed, some of us, really not very nice citizens. I've seen it over there with tourists and so forth. And my first introduction to there was somewhat a little different, under different circumstances. We were forced on them in as much as we were over there saving their skins. So we went over and we were accepted. But in the post-war years and traveling around over there, I've seen a lot of Americans do some pretty stupid things and be very rude to people. And so some of us really earned that. I'd like to get to basketball, Caleb. I just thought it unique, and I thought perhaps our listeners enjoyed it. How a young man from Central Illinois would end up playing basketball in Europe. And I would vouchsafe to say that probably very few of us realize, and I did not, I was among those very few who did not realize that there was an active pro basketball league in Europe. And it's not just the country of France, it's in all the European countries. And as I understand it, after doing some research, that each country has their own specific basketball leagues, and they don't so much play like Germany versus Belgium or anything like that, but they play within the country of origin. So how did you get recruited to go to France to play basketball, young fella?
Yeah, I guess first one is diligence and hard work. But typically, like I said, I went to Judson University, and I graduated in 2012. At the end of that particular year, I made the all-conference team, and so I was invited to a international exposure camp. At this particular international exposure camp, I played pretty well. There was 217 of the best athletes all around the country, Division I through Division III, NCAA, NAIA, Division I and II at the time. Now NAIA is fused into one. And all these athletes would come just looking to potentially get a job. And when you go to these different camps, there's hundreds of scouts and agents and coaches from not only all over America, but also internationally, from Japan, from Asia, from Australia, Europe, different places all over the place. And that is, you are yourself the product that you're trying to sell. So however you can get noticed positively, you needed to do. And so for me, I'm very athletic. So that's how I was noticed very quickly. In layup lines, I would always dunk, or I would do something that was very beyond what other people could do. And they would write your number down, and then they watch you play in the game. And after the game, either they'd come up and talk to you, or you could walk over to the table if you were so bold and speak to them and, present yourself accordingly. And they would talk to you, and you get names, numbers, and contacts, and then you would go about it that way. I was fortunate enough for an individual to come up to me and say he was interested. So I went to another tryout. Out of those 217 players that were there, he picked 11 to go to another tryout. And out of the 11, he picked 2 players to play on his team. I was one of the 2. So then I was drafted into the American Basketball League. I played in Destin, Florida, which wasn't a bad place to play. I played there for 1 season. We were our Tropics regular season champions. So then from there, after I left the ABL, I came back and played basketball in Springfield for the Springfield Express, where I averaged 27 points a game and 8 rebounds, and was approached to come play in France.
Now, I don't want to know specifics, but the salary range, the range from to playing in a European league, how does that compare with and I'm sure it doesn't even begin to compare with what we get in the pro leagues here today in this country.
You know what?
Is it decent money?
It is, and I would say it's kind of like when you have a dream job. You start off at the internship level, and then after you get your internship, you get your basic entry level position, and then after you get promoted and things like that throughout a vast corporation. So I'd look at basketball the same way. Like when you play semi-professional basketball, it's like your internship. Then when you get your first contract, that's like your entry-level position. So there's lots of benefits that the corporation has to offer you, even though the salary may not be extremely as high as it would be if you played in the NBA, of course. But eventually, as you continue playing on, there is more money because you have more worth. Your resume is a little bit stronger, so you have the potential to grow, and it's all on your shoulders individually. So that's what's so unique and important about the sport itself is, you have to keep yourself as a well-oiled machine in order for you to get to that, CFO position or the CEO position that you've been desiring since you were, younger. So
yeah.
Are these teams owned by individuals or corporations over there in Europe?
Both, depending on which team you go to.
I see.
There's a couple of, in my experience, there's a couple of French players that affiliate themselves with these different teams in their region. So Tony Parker was affiliated with my team. So the first game that I was in Fay Camp, Tony Parker Sr., his father was at the game courtside, and before the game started, he came to the locker room. He talked to me because he knew I played basketball somewhere close to Chicago, and he's from Chicago personally. So we sat down and we talked about, make sure you keep the game fun and what happens when it becomes difficult and things like that, and being an American overseas, like all these things that were so relatable. He gave me a lot of knowledge, and there's an individual, a French guy from the Portland Trailblazers. I can't think of his name right now, but he owned a team in it was Caen, France, Caen, and so there's a lot of, like I said, national teams that players like, hey, I used to live there, I used to play there. I want to become a part of what it is that you're doing.
Were you the only American, Caleb, on your team?
I was.
You were.
No. That's a good question, Judith K. Excuse me, please. I'm sorry. Then whence cometh the other players from what other countries? All around? Yeah,
potentially they come from anywhere. I mean, they can come internationally. I know there's one of my teammates was, a guy that I played against was from Lithuania. Another guy was from Africa. A lot of guys were from French, so there's a lot of French nationals there that. But, I mean, you could come from anywhere. Basketball is basketball, and people want to win, so they're looking for you.
No variation at all in rules or procedures?
There are stipulations as far as how many players you have on a team. I think in my league, you can only have one American per team. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that a fact?
Mm-hmm. Because
one American per team?
Well, because you can't really stereotype, but America is the best basketball, so if we just went to go find the best players, they just all come to America. And the guys that didn't make the NBA, there's still some phenomenal basketball players that haven't even had the opportunity to play anywhere else. They'd find them and bring them over, and people just pile it up with Americans. And
yeah, I can see that.
The national home teams would be so frustrated that, hey, where are our guys?
Yeah.
I don't want to see just Americans, so.
I
That
can
makes
see
sense.
That, yeah. Tell me about your accommodations. We talked about it in the car on the way up. You indicated that you really had some nice accommodations.
And like I said, that's kind of the perks of the organization you were a part of. I had my own apartment. And that's, foreign, a college guy, just getting out of college, you have your own apartment, and I had my own vehicle, and I had a monthly salary as well. So it was, at this point, it was teaching myself how to manage myself and all those different types of things. If you go somewhere and you have access to all these new amenities and you just kind of waste it away, like you look back and you're like, wow, like I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know how to invest. I don't know what to do with my money or things like that. But so I learned quickly. I grew up really fast, and I think that was important because not only am I learning business on the fly, but I'm learning it in a different country.
Yeah. Right.
So if anyone would take advantage of you in America, like, okay, I didn't understand that, so that was difficult. But they're speaking a completely different language. Yeah. So if you didn't want to be included in a part of a conversation, they would just speak French. And so it's up to one who really desires to develop themselves to learn the language, and that's kind of was my challenge. Was I didn't want to just be some guy that bounces a ball. I wanted to not only be a part of the culture, but I wanted to be a part of the community, and I think that was so important for my development. And it's one of the main reasons why they're probably asking me to come back.
Yes, let's talk about that for a minute, Caleb. You said that you had an invitation to return, and does that mean that it could develop into something that would last a few years, or what?
Well, from what I know from my experience with the community and the town and the kids, they'd want me to stay forever. Because not only what I do as a basketball athlete, I do some great things as a basketball athlete, but what I also bring to the community, even though I didn't speak the language, I taught kids how to play basketball. And not just on a basic level, I taught them like skills they needed to develop, because it is about a passion that's inside your heart. And I think courage and kindness are things that you don't need a language to have. People see it in your eyes. And the nonverbal communication is probably one of my favorite things to study in school, because that's how I learned a lot of things. That's how I knew how to speak to people and facial expressions, all this different type of stuff. But as far as maintaining myself, if I could stay at this particular program until I was 50 playing basketball, if I was still able. They could still keep me going all the time. However, like I said, the reason why I say if I return is because as a basketball athlete and as a young man, you do want to get to the highest potential level as fast as possible, because there's such a talent pool is always following behind you. So the relationships that I built were fantastic. The experiences that I had were unforgettable, but it's you're keeping in mind what your ultimate ambition was, and that is to make it to the highest level possible.
You talked about you could play till you're 50 if you were able. I know a fellow from Lincoln played in Spain, Chuck Verderber, and he broke his Achilles tendon at nasty business. And, of course, he had to have surgery. Now, do they cover you with insurance through your team so that if you do scrape your knee or what have you, hopefully not break your tendon, they take care of your health? Yeah,
and you know what? That's a fun story, because semi-professional basketball, if you get hurt, you got hurt, and I hope you can fix it. But when I got to France, within the contract, there is an insurance clause. So they do cover a percentage of your hospital bill. Now, if you exceed expectations, they will exceed expectations also. I learned that. I hurt myself the first game I actually started. I hurt myself and I had to get an MRI. Thankfully I wasn't injured at all and I could continue playing. But that hospital fee for the MRI was completely taken care of. And I'm thankful to God, because I'm an individual. I just started working. I have no support around me. So paying for something that
all by yourself,
all by myself would have been a blow. So. But like I said, that within my contract, there was a clause that covered my insurance needs and things like that. And playing semi-professional for 2 years and knowing that hey, I got to pay for everything, when they said this, I was so excited.
Good deal.
That was the first thing I was looking to read. So
We have contracts. Excuse me, I'm going to have to step in here just a minute,
I don't blame you.
If I may. Well, no, we have contracts that's called sponsors.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize these sponsors. So if I can get Mrs. Busby to just calm down a minute or two, we'll go right to the switchboard and switch to the sponsors. Right back live. I didn't get the nod. I'm sorry there, sir, Mr. Engineer. You're live in the studio at WLCN. The program is Viewpoint. Every Wednesday morning, 8:15 to 9. Our guest this morning is Mr. Caleb Sutton. Caleb's here because he's produced a rather unusual career in his post-college basketball playing. He's gone to Europe and played in the country of France. And I thought that's kind of interesting. It'd be interesting to hear his experiences. And we appreciate you taking your time, Caleb. 648-5510. Somebody might have a question to ask this young man. It's a very unique experience to go abroad on your own, single, with no support, and be thrust in a foreign-speaking country. The only American on the team. Had to be kind of a loving experience for you, a maturation, if you will, for you to grow up so quickly. Even though you were a college graduate, we don't know everything there is to know once we get out of college. And
so true.
and you found that out in a hurry, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Tell me about the venues in which you played over there. We're used to pretty decent gymnasiums here in all of our games that we see here locally and at the college level. And certainly at the, I don't know how anybody can afford to go to a professional ball game. But anyway, the venues are all very, very nice. And tell us about the venues in which you played over there.
I think I know for a fact Lincoln basketball spoils you for the entirety of your basketball career because,
sure.
There's such a following, there's such a, crowd support, and everybody in the city knows you, and they understand your basketball career, not just how good you are, but they know your stats too, and they know everything about when you graduated, how you shot your jump shot. It was crazy.
You just have no secrets.
Oh man, there's none whatsoever. They know you by face and name.
You're 6'7", you stand out a little bit.
Yeah. But even in France, like, it was just like playing basketball in Lincoln because, there was the crowd base and there was kids and fans that wanted your autograph, and they wanted to talk to you after the game. And because it wasn't like the largest, basketball's not the largest sport in France, but it's up there. They want to get to know, develop, how did you get to become an athlete the way you did? What workouts should I do since I'm young to develop myself so I can be able to dunk? Or how should I fix my jump shot? A lot of things. The community is such a great experience that you get. And what I learned, it's not about what you get from people, but it's about what you can give back to other people. That really makes it something that's worthwhile, that makes your experiences unforgettable, because the more you're willing to give, the kinder you are to other people, you see the kind of impact and the change that you make when you do have to leave. And I think that was what was so powerful for me. It was like, I didn't really want to leave because there was different little relationships and programs that I kind of was able to establish myself in, that I knew I was going to miss. And just what I did, like, I wanted to make sure when I left an impact, and then you knew I was gone, so you might miss me a little bit. So,
well, good for you. There's a good American representation.
Oh gosh, I can't tell you how impressed I am. What a wonderful, wonderful representative you are.
Thank you.
For this country. You are one of the nicest kids I ever saw. Honest to John, I don't know what your mom did, but she did it right.
She did it right. We know that.
You betcha.
He and his brother Josh are real additions to us here. Tell us about your travel experiences. How do you travel? In nice coaches, air-conditioned buses and all that? They don't put you in the Conestoga wagon and take you around.
Yeah, you know what? That was another thing. I had no idea what to expect. When I was in, Florida playing basketball against semi-professional, we rode in vans, and the average height was 6'8", in like a 15-passenger van, and we had 12 people riding. So,
yeah,
really,
nose to nose, huh?
Yeah, and so when we got to France, we had these charter buses, and we had like 8 people riding on a charter bus, and so I didn't know what to do. There was so much space, so it was a completely a shift immediately, and what I noticed is, like, in every venue, like, people kind of take what they have for granted. Like, guys would complain, like, oh, the bus isn't nice enough, and I'm like, this bus is amazing.
They make some very
It was
nice
incredible.
buses.
Yeah, when you like I feel like you have a deeper appreciation when you actually fight for something. When you're fighting for something, like, it wasn't handed to you, and you work to scrape and get there. Once you get there, you have such an appreciation for it. And you can tell those people that are willing to work because of that appreciation versus those who kind of had this expectation, well, I've been this good all the time, so this should come anyway. And it's you can tell, like, not only and what you do in the community, but also what you do on the basketball court. You have there's a different passion,
Were there any people on your team that were from your town, the town?
Yeah, there
Your
were.
hometown.
I don't think that they lived there their entire lives, but they've rooted themselves there now. So now they're residents. I think if you live somewhere for 3 years, you're a resident there. So
Population-wise, Caleb, how big was the community in which you lived, the team hometown?
I'm not good with numbers like that.
Yeah. Well, a Springfield or a Bloomington or a Beeston?
I go for I wouldn't say Bloomington normal. I'd just say Bloomington.
Okay. Okay. What was your
pretty good size.
uniform like? Was it just like the ones you wore here?
Oh, absolutely not. There's so many sponsors all over the jersey.
Oh.
I feel like as a basketball athlete, that is like the worst thing you want to see. It's like there's 700 things and you don't have your name on your back. You know what I mean? So,
But you do have your number.
Yeah, you do have your number, and so the level that I was at, I didn't have my name and people couldn't go buy my jersey. But as far as the sponsorships, man, there was, like, the more stickers you have on your jersey, the better it is. Like, if you don't have any stickers, don't go to that team.
Okay. Well,
Let me ask you, when you travel, does the team travel in casual dress, or do they like you to dress, is there a dress code when you're on the road as a team?
There's not, but you forget I'm from Lincoln. So not only am I from Lincoln, but I'm a Sutton, so I know how to present myself everywhere that I go. So when I went out, I made sure I wore my nicest threads, because not only am I a basketball athlete, and there's like a stereotype that goes along with basketball athletes, they're just there for the girls and to get money.
don't you mess with those girls.
You know what? That's what my mom said too. I didn't forget it.
I bet he didn't.
But I wanted to showcase myself as not just a basketball athlete, but a representative of my community, which was my town of Fay Camp, also of myself and my family. So and as an American, because these are all the things they're looking at, and they're like, why are you so different? And that was something that, like, I took pride in personally. So when I had the opportunity to buy nice clothes, I would wear them to the games, not just when we had, like, nice events. And you could wear sweatpants and a ball cap if you really wanted to, but I didn't do that all the time.
Good. How about your physical fitness and keeping in good shape now while you're not being on the team every day?
It's very, like, I'm very intentional. I work out 2 or 3 times a day, every day, and maybe on Sunday I'll work out once. But I think it's the most important. Just like any job, I don't think athletics is any different than any job one can excel in, because you get as much as you put in. So if I really want to develop myself into a premier athlete, I need to put forth a premier performance every single day, so that when that opportunity and that shot comes, there's nothing that's lacking for me. It's not a different speed, or it's not a different physicality, because I've trained myself to stand before these people and be evaluated on this level.
You said something about an exposure camp. And the way you present yourself. Can you explain a little bit what the exposure camp is?
Well, what it is, typically exposure camps, the ones that are worth going to, you're invited to. So what they have for you is, there is an opportunity for you to make a career in this particular field, and you have this opportunity because of the work that you've done throughout the entirety of your basketball career has led you to this point. And so now we want to make an investment in it, because when it's about making money, people want to invest clearly into something that they know is worth building a foundation upon. So at these different exposure camps, they find these guys that potentially have the ability to, run a system around. And they want to see who's the best out of those things, and not just as far as what you do on the court, but also what you do off the court. That's really important. I think a lot of guys miss that, because for an athlete, as soon as you walk into the gym, you're being evaluated. How you're dressing, how you're walking, what you're doing. Are you stretching? Are you staying hydrated? If you're not doing these things, they're taking notes, and they want to know. Everything's being evaluated. And so the more educated you are on the subject and the situation, the better opportunity you're going to ultimately have.
How about your degree that you worked so hard for in college? One is business, and you certainly are using that in reading your contract and knowing what to do.
Using his head.
Yeah. And how about your communication degree? When you're 50 and you don't play basketball anymore, do you think you'd enjoy that or try for that?
Try for what specifically?
To be an announcer, a sports announcer.
Oh, you know what? What I did in communications is it's kind of like relational communications. So that's my favorite thing, is I like speaking with, communicating with other people. I think my ultimate ambition would be to go to different schools and different places and inspire young people to go beyond who it is they are themselves. One of the things I learned in my business classes was there's the 7 Laws of Leadership. It's a book, and one of the laws was called the Law of the Lid. Mm-hmm. And what it was saying is we all have a ceiling that our potential climax is at. Mm-hmm. But what the lid is someone who's gone beyond you, who has this wisdom, removes that lid so your potential can then heighten. And that so resonated with me. And as far as communication is concerned, as far as relationships and establishing yourselves with other people and building a legacy, that's what I really, really care about as far as communication is concerned. So I think I'll be using that part of my degree, beyond 50.
Every day of your life?
Yeah, every day of my life. And then that's what I loved about communications and the study of it.
A motivational speaker to young people.
Yeah, right.
And I'd see that he's getting a pretty good start on that right now, today.
Yeah. Great.
Go right ahead, dear.
Your team standing, you said when you got there they weren't at the top of their league, okay? How was it after the season?
Well, we still aren't at the top of our league. However, we had moved a position up, and that was really good. Like I said, there were 64 teams in our league. So it was it was a whirlwind of basketball play all the time. And the sad part was, I got there in the middle of the season, so the footprint had already been stamped on, and there was opportunities to continue to raise it, but I got injured a few times during the season, so I had to sit out. The last 6 weeks of my season, I was out. So there was, there's not a whole lot that I could have done as far as that thing was concerned, but what I learned throughout the entirety of that experience, to me, was more valuable than winning all the time. I feel like when you win all the time, you don't really scrutinize yourself, but when you lose, you see all the things that you need to work on immediately, and you put it upon yourself to change it so you don't have to go through those things again. How
many of your team members felt that same way?
I don't think a lot of people feel that way all the time, and not just in basketball, but in life in general. I feel like in our society today, we're so worried about my generation anyway, entertainment and success and get rich quick schemes. We don't think about who am I becoming and what am I ultimately doing, what I'm doing this thing for. You know what I mean? And I understand, I want to build up my community and people so the kids beneath me have something to aspire to become. And not only aspire to become that, but go beyond where it is that I so reached. That's kind of, when I become a father and I have a family and kids and things like that, I want them to do greater things than what I've done. And I imagine, we all want that for our families. And it's just starting to click for me at a young age, I guess. And I kind of really want to have that foundationalized for whenever I stop playing ball. I don't want to lose whatever zeal I had to get there,
You won't.
Yeah.
I hope not. I really do.
What we just heard there, Judy, is a well-grounded young man who has his values set and his goals set.
Amazing.
And I think the future is going to bode very well for Caleb. The interesting thing to me, and I presume to a lot of others here in this country, particularly here in the Corn Belt part of the country, is that our national pastime, basketball, well, that's, of course, really baseball is our true national pastime, but basketball is so popular here, and I guess none of us realize that how really popular it is over there in the European continent. Now, do they have leagues in the British Isles as well? Are you aware of any of those over there?
Yeah, I mean, anywhere that there's a solid network of cash flow, there's probably going to be basketball.
A hoop and a peach basket, we're ready to go.
Yeah, you just get some metal and a circle, and then we're playing ball. So, as far as I can tell, on all 7 continents, there's basketball. So
that's amazing.
And that's, I think the same thing too. I mean, you got guys that, especially in America, that they're trying to go anywhere and everywhere. And if you listen to guys that have gone and played basketball, there's places you should not go to. Do not go there, because what ultimately ends up happening is, there's different neighborhoods and cities that aren't the best, and then you have there's cartels and all this different stuff that you don't want to become a part of, because again, you're removed from the society, but you're still there. And then these different, people go to Israel and all this stuff to play basketball, and if you go, you're removed from the society, but what's going on around your community. Do you really want to be a part of those things? And that's what people take into consideration, because they're chasing a dream. But I know that there's basketball, everywhere. Everywhere. So
the too bad about that is that those very kids that live in the area that you best stay out of, are the kids who need somebody like you. It's just a darned if you do, darned if you don't thing, isn't it? Tough. Sometimes decisions are darn tough.
We visited with Caleb on the way up as regards his future as far as next year is concerned, and you'll be going to not is camp the word to see if there are openings possibly here in this country.
Yeah.
And then other than that, then you still have the options to go back to Europe to play basketball. Yeah,
and I actually just got back from LA yesterday. And that's kind of what I was doing, was developing my resume, if you will. So it went pretty well. For me personally, I'm not going to talk about it, but it went really well. Good. And I learned a lot of stuff about what I need to do in order to take it to that next level. And I think that's what's so important. Again, you have a window through which you can maintain yourself to the highest level possible. And you want to, once that window is there, you want to make sure when it's time to showcase yourself that you're fully prepared. And that's what I'm particularly doing. So it's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, it's annoying, it's fantastic. It's a lot of emotions that I don't want to have at 23, but it's all those things all put in one. So
our guest this morning has been Mr. Caleb Sutton, a young man of whom we're very proud. Judy and I are delighted to have as part of our neighborhood. Caleb, we appreciate your sharing your time with us this morning. You've enlightened a lot of us on something about which we knew very, very little, if not nothing, about Americans going to the great continent of Europe and playing basketball as a career, or at least to start in a career. You've been very gracious with your time and your comments, and we appreciate that. The closing comment this morning certainly would not involve a young gentleman like Caleb Sutton, but I had to look around trying a sports comment of some sort. I kind of found a little facetious one that said, some colleges have a strict rule on awards. No student athlete may be awarded a letter unless we can tell you which letter it is. So with that, we'll thank Caleb Sutton very much for his time. See you next Wednesday. Thank you very much, Caleb.